Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday's episode of Media Matters. You've got me again. Yes, it's Eddie Gibbs, and Dave Davis is still away for one more week. So, as promised, I'm covering it again with the wonderful David Lynch. And David, I need to ask how you are, because I think that you were the one that caught me off guard yesterday. That was a friendly I didn't even know was happening. So I don't know if you knew that was happening in advance or whether it caught you off guard as well.
Yeah, it did slightly actually, because it was my son's third birthday yesterday, so I was in the midst of all that madness, and then get a kind of heads up from someone that the game's taking place. But helpful for us in terms of content perspective, isn't it, to have things going on, and I guess helpful for the players as well. Because I did kind of think actually when you looked at the pre-season schedule, they maybe looked a couple of games short. So obviously the plans were to have this behind closed door friendly, and turned out pretty well for them in the end, and I think quite a lot of positives from it.
Yeah, we'll discuss some of them. I know that there's also an audio podcast coming out on our channel and a video on your channel. We're discussing that in more detail. We will cover it here as well. But if anyone wants a bit more from David on that, then please head to either his YouTube channel or the audio version will appear on Anfield Index at some point today as well. I have delegated that because, as many of you may be aware, I'm involved in a few podcasts unexpectedly today. So this is the most important one, though. And we need to start. The only place to start, really, David, which is Hugo Ekiteke. That's a deal that kind of we were discussing last week as something that was in the pipeline. And then obviously as the week went, it got beefier and beefier as a story. And then yesterday, I think all the usual suspects started reporting that to consider it done effectively. As of yesterday, we got the Romano Here We Go and a few other people kind of confirming 6-year contract, and then some details around the price without too much. But we have now had David Ornstein of The Athletic, and I suppose you may have had some info yourself on what the nature of this deal is. Are we safe to consider it done? What do you know about the contract and the value of this transfer?
Yeah, so absolutely done on all sides now. Full agreement between the clubs, and that is for a fee of an initial £69 million, with then a further £10 million in add-ons, also part of the deal. So those add-ons relate to kind of player and club achievements. So Liverpool said kind of similar to Wirtz in that regard, that they absolutely don't mind if they have to pay these, because it'll mean Ekitike's banged a load of goals in over the next few years, and also that they've won, the Premier League, the Champions League, etc. So, potentially 79 million in total, but an initial 69 million pounds with those 10 million in add-ons. And now we're kind of moving towards the final stages of the move, to completely get it signed off, which is the player coming over tomorrow for his medical to do that, and then the plan is then later in the week to fly him out to Asia for the back end of the tour. So moving fast and getting done. And you can never say it's completely done until the medical's fully done, as we know with Nabil Fekir. But we're barring something terrible happening, this deal is pretty much done. Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on the player? I know you've done a bit of profile on him. I spoke to Raphael Honigstein this morning, and the one red flag that seems to be coming up is him underperforming his XG. And Raf wasn't as concerned about that. He kind of spoke about XG models, and people can go and look at that in their own time. But is that XG a red flag for you here with this player?
Yeah, I think it's a fair concern to a degree, but what I'm seeing as well, I think, is some of the kind of over the top analysis. So in terms of the player, I must be honest, I haven't watched an awful lot of him. I don't watch the Bundesliga too frequently. I watch the odd game, but maybe not too many Frankfurt games because they are on Sky, aren't they? So I do catch the odd one, but obviously I've got a young child and a wife who's not a big football fan, so don't get to watch that much outside of Liverpool, which obviously is my job. But you look at the numbers and they can give you a rough idea, can't they? You get an idea of the kind of player Liverpool are getting. And I know that is something that's been flagged a lot and it's something I spoke about when I did a kind of deep dive into him on my YouTube channel, is that, the shooting numbers and the fact that the underperformance in terms of expected goals. And I think it is a fair concern when you look at last season, minus 5.3, I think he is on non-penalty goals versus expected goals for last season. That is a humongous underperformance. There's just no question about it. But I don't think it's fair to take that as the entirety of his career and say that this guy is a terrible finisher and he's going to be a terrible finisher at Liverpool. I mean, I've seen an awful lot of comparisons to Darwin Nunes, which I think are incredibly unfair, to be honest, because you look a little bit deeper into Ekiteke, and so huge underperformance of expected goals last season, minus 5.3. The season before, he was plus 1.6. So he overperformed his expected goals, as you would expect of a good finisher, basically, or a very good finisher. The season prior to that, minus 0.7. So very, very minor underperformance, was generally in line with his expected goals. The season prior to that, plus 4.2. So again, looking like a really good finisher in that season. So, and then I think the season prior to that, minus 0.2. So overall for his career, he's minus 0.3. So he's roughly, basically, a kind of an even level finisher, which is absolutely fine, I think. You know, I don't think Liverpool need to go and find another plus finisher. I mean, it'd be great if they do, and if they go and sign Isak or whatever, you know, regardless, then fantastic, because he is a plus finisher. But you've got Salah, who's a career plus finisher. You've got Wirtz, who's a career plus finisher. You know, you're not too worried. You just need a guy who's not going to be crazy underperformer like a Darwin Nunes has been. And, you know, like I say, those comparisons with Nunes are often there, but I think they're unfair, because Nunes has basically over his entire career been under massively on his expected goals. He's a poor finisher. All the evidence is there. He had one season where he was incredible, and it was the season before Liverpool bought him. He's never got anywhere near that otherwise. So, you know, Ekiteke isn't that. I think you could just make the case that he's pretty much a level with expected goals finisher over the course of his career, and maybe he'll have some really good seasons and maybe some seasons where he's under, but he does an awful lot of other things as well. So definitely not a Nunes in that regard, I would say. Pretty level finisher, definitely not going to, generally, I would guess, perform under his expected goals. Plus, I think all the other upsides that he offers are there. So, yeah, I think some of the talk about him has been a little bit unfair. And, yeah, I'm interested to see how he gets on and how he fits in and all those aspects. But I think the base numbers to me look like a very, very good player, to be honest.
In the conversation I had with Rafa Honigstein this morning, he made that I made that point to him about the Nunes and the Ekiteke comparisons, and he very much moved away from the XG and put it more down to decision making. He thinks that with Darwin Nunes, it's literally just a case of he's not a good elite decision maker, and he says that Ekiteke has all the hallmarks of being a good decision maker. Obviously, we know we had the most shots in the Bundesliga last season, but then he made the point that doesn't come down to indecisiveness with decision making. That's more about where those shots were being taken from. So there was a lot of statistical data that he used to kind of go against the grain in that respect of sort of the established norms that have been coming out about Ekiteke and this concern about his finishing.
Well, and I think the thing is with the Nunes thing as well is the one thing we were saying for a long time, and the one thing I think a lot of people involved in statistics were kind of hanging the hat on him a little bit, was this guy gets shots at an elite level. And if you continue to do that, generally the trend will be towards scoring goals. Now, Ekiteke has got that quality. He gets shots, and he gets good quality shots as well. I mean, you look at the numbers, he's kind of right up there with Harry Kane in terms of both shot getting, but also shot getting in really good locations. So he's got a strength there. And like I say, the one thing that held Nunes back is finishing was biblically bad. Like, to get that many shots consistently and still not chalk up an acceptable number of goals, he just was he is a freakishly bad finisher. That's just unfortunate. But Ekiteke just has to kind of, like I say, finish at a level, not level with his expected goals, which he generally has over his career. Plus, he's got kind of Nunes shot getting qualities and good shots as well. If he does that and he performs at level, he will get a lot of goals for Liverpool. There's no question about it. And as you say, decision making in other parts of the pitch is very good as well. Suggests that he could, over time become a very good finisher as well. Got all the technical qualities you need. So there really is, like I say, I've not watched loads of tape of him, but I think that in terms of the numbers, I think there's an awful lot to be encouraged about there.
And we know that slots changing things. Obviously, we know that we're bringing in Florian Wirtz, who we're expecting to play centrally as a number 10 at this stage, without knowing any more about what Slot's plans are at this stage. How are we going to evolve this front line? Because last season, when Nunes or Jota did start, it wasn't like they were missing hatfuls of chances. They weren't falling to them. I mean, Liverpool almost adjusted their game to not play with a traditional number 9. It was almost like Arne Slot had decided that those forwards weren't for him. They weren't his style of number 9. So he was going to adapt and do something a little bit different to try and keep Mo Salah in the game as much as he could. This seems to be a move away from that, with the fact that we've signed this number 10, this elite number 10, not just any number 10. And then we've gone and signed this this dynamic number 9 who's completely different to anything Liverpool have right now. I mean, I watched some of the clips like you will have done on YouTube of the game, and there's only so much you can get garnished from YouTube. I don't watch a lot of the Bundesliga just like you, and it's one of those that makes me think that I don't think I've seen a profile of player like this in the whole time I've supported Liverpool. I can't, and I'm going back like 35 years since I've been watching this club, and I don't remember us having a number 9 quite in his mold before.
In terms of, just to kind of thingy on that, what exactly about his profile do you think is kind of quite different? Because I mean, we probably watching him from afar. I mean, it's kind of hard to. But what is it that's interesting? You think there?
Yeah, I think where or I've not seen someone like that. He's almost like a lot of the traits of Bobby Firmino in terms of the hold up, in terms of the link up play, but also the finishing. Whereas Firmino did have the finishing as well. Let's not pretend he didn't, but he was never the pivot. He was never the focal point. He was a false 9 rather than a 9. Whereas this lad seems to have a lot of the false 9 traits, but also the spearhead, the number 9 traits as well. I don't think I've quite seen that in a single player before. Not for Liverpool anyway.
Yeah, that's a good shout actually. Like in terms of he can do the stuff in kind of coming deep and dropping off and popping the pass off, but then he will lean back to being on the shoulder and being willing to kind of go behind in that way. So that is interesting. It'll be, yeah, kind of interesting to see how it works, as you say, because Liverpool did go back to almost that false 9 setup last season on the basis that Slot decided he didn't want any of his centre forward options probably getting shot outside of Jota, who was an excellent finisher. You know, you have to say that. But for the better of the team, it was like, this is how we're going to use our centre forward, because sometimes it's going to be Nunes, sometimes it's going to be Diaz, and they are not just, they're not fantastic finishers. And you see the goal numbers from the wingers and what Salah was doing last season. It was clear that so much was pointed around the idea of bringing this central guy deep, as they did with Firmino, and getting the wingers into goal scoring positions. So yeah, it is interesting because, are they going to use Ekiteke in that similar way? Do they want him kind of just be involved in build-up? Or I guess they can't, because they're going to have Wirtz in that really more traditional number 10 position. Or do they want to push Wirtz up as a kind of front 2, as they did with Szoboszlai and Diaz last season? It's going to be absolutely fascinating, as you say. And I think, you can never, even if we'd have watched a lot more of Ekiteke, I still think it's very difficult to say how a player is going to fit into a certain team, what the idea is of the manager are going to be. And, the only insight we really get into those kind of things is these pre-season friendlies, these little snippets we see in training or whatever. So it's going to be fascinating. And I mean, this whole thing that's going on with the forward line at the moment, the whole kind of, rejigging of the entire team really is going to be fascinating. And it makes it interesting for us. Loads to talk about with it, isn't it? And yeah, loads to get into for these preseason games. So I can't wait for that first tour game now, and I can't wait to see a bit of Ekiteke and see Wirtz behind him in the 10 and see where Salah, how he works around that and what happens on the left wing and all these things. It is so interesting and exciting as well.
Yeah, I mean, the plans are, we kind of rewind to the start of the season. I wasn't doing the show with you. Obviously, it was Dave, but I don't think anyone in any transfer preview shows or anything that I heard coming into the window expected anything quite on this level, even to what we've done already. Never mind what we're still to do, which we'll talk about later in the show. But how surprised have you been? I mean, it's like you follow the club closer than most. You're at all the games. You're at the press conferences. You speak to Tony Barrett and Neil Jones and the media guys as well. I mean, did you have any inkling that this might be coming at all, even in your wildest imagination?
To a degree, I guess, in that, I was saying for a long time in the build up to this that this is going to be a big summer for Liverpool, because there's going to be a lot of outgoings, and therefore those players are going to need to be replaced. I think what has kind of taken me by surprise is that they just kicked things off by signing Florian Wirtz for a British transfer record. I did not see that coming, I'll be honest. I thought, you're going to lose Nunes, maybe, Chiesa is probably going to go. You're going to have to change those players. There's going to be changes at the back. So, a lot of outgoings to create a lot of incomings, but it's just the fact that on top of the, left back as well, we knew they were going to sign there. For example, Trent going to need a right back. So there were, there's a certain amount of the business that you could see coming, and that's why he kept kind of banging the drum that this is going to be a busy summer for Liverpool. But as I say, it's the fact that they kicked it off with Wirtz. I almost thought they were going to say, we're kind of happy with what we've got in midfield for now. It's probably going to need tweaking down the line. I didn't think they were going to do that this summer. And so you do that, and it's such a big transfer, and then everything else that we already knew they were going to do on top of that is absolutely crazy, really. So yeah, definitely didn't see that aspect of it coming, albeit that I thought it was going to be busy, but nothing like this. And yeah, again, it kind of throws up the question: how do they all fit together? How much are they going to end up having spent in this window? It's crazy to think about, really, and also the question of how do they all fit together, and does it work when you have this much turnover? I thought they'd be maybe more willing to limit turnover, and that's not happening. So yeah, quite a lot about it, I guess, has maybe caught me by surprise.
And